Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a little mid-year reading check-in. Before I start, don't look behind me. Don't look at any of this. It's chaos in here. Currently packing to go to Glastonbury tomorrow, or actually like very early in the AM. I think I'm leaving here at like 4 AM tomorrow morning. So I'm currently trying to pack for Glastonbury. I've not done a camping festival in so many years, so I'm panicked about how it's gonna go. I'm very excited, but also I'm worried. So packing has been chaos and I'm just not tidying it up right now. Like, it's just not happening. So apologies for that. Just don't look at it. I've also been building a lot of IKEA furniture, so some of that's just around as well. But none of that's important. Today we're here to talk about books and specifically to do a little mid-year reading check-in. It's the end of June now. We are 6 months into the year and I thought I would give you a little update on which books have been the best books that I've read so far this year and also the worst ones. What's been the most disappointing? What am I still looking forward to reading for the rest of the year? What are my most beautiful books? There's a bunch of questions and we're just going to go through all of these questions and have a little chat about books. And I would love if you answered the same questions in the comments below, or pick and choose whatever questions you fancy answering as well, because I love getting recommendations from everyone watching as well. So let's start. A couple of stats just to begin with. I have read 94 books this year, which is crazy. Can't believe I've almost read 100 books so far this year. I've actually kind of slowed down in this last month, but I was on a roll before. I was going crazy with the amount of books that I was reading. So I have read 94 books, but only 8 of them are actually 5 out of 5 perfect books in my opinion. And so it's very difficult for me to pick a favourite book. I'll throw some stats up on the screen. You can see kind of my genres, how I normally read them, and kind of my rating graph as well. I think that's quite interesting to see how I rate things, because to me a 3-star read is still a good read that I would recommend to people. 4-star read is like, yeah, I really enjoyed this, it was so much fun. 5-star read is like, oh my god, new favourite, like it's above the rest, you know. So I do reserve 5 stars for stuff that is to me very special. I know people rate very differently, so that's kind of how I do it. So all that being said, the first prompt or question in this tag is, what's the best book that you read this year? I cannot pick one book. Also, if you know me and you know this channel, you know that I read quite diversely. I read lots of different genres, lots of different kinds of books. So it's very difficult for me to pick a favourite book because it's so hard to compare. Like, how am I supposed to compare a like really heavy sci-fi book to something that is like experimental and like literary, you know, masterpiece? It, like, they can't compare. So a lot of this is just based on like my own enjoyment and, yeah, obviously the quality of the book as well. But I want to give you 3 of my favourite reads this year, because that's the most I can narrow it down to, and these are the ones that aren't included in other answers, the rest of the tag. So the first of these is Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang. I absolutely loved this book. I read it recently when I was on holiday. It was so much fun. I was gripped from the very first page. I was so invested. I just love how she tells stories, and I loved Sword of Kaigan by the same author. I absolutely loved Blood Over Bright Haven. Gonna be one of my favourites of the year, without a doubt. An amazing fantasy read. It's a standalone fantasy. It is set in this like technologically and like magically advanced utopian society where there is this dome over the city basically protecting them from the outside, and you follow 2 different characters from 2 very different backgrounds within this city, and as they are interacting with one another, it becomes very clear that this utopia is actually, you know, built on very shoddy foundations. So if you like a fast-paced fantasy that explores truth and corruption and power dynamics, you would love this book, and it's just beautifully written in my opinion as well. My next favourite also has to be Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettle. I absolutely loved this book when I read it. It's one of those books that I think that I just read it and I thought that it was written for me specifically. I think that so many of the ways that the main character is articulating what she's going through in her thought process is something that I've been thinking about, and it just puts it in such a beautiful philosophical kind of way. Basically, this story is about 2 really good friends and they both decide that they don't want to have children. one of the friends then has a sterilization procedure, and the other friend then kind of changes her mind and she wants to then have children. And it's kind of focused on their friendships and what their decisions mean for their life and how they live their life, their philosophies. And I just think it is a beautiful read. Very, very sad. It did make me cry, but I absolutely adored this book so much. And then the third book for the best book question is the Poisonwood Bible. And actually both of these books I read for my friend book club, so absolutely knockout reads. Two of them have made it to my favorites like so far of the year. The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver was another incredible read. This is a historical fiction and I don't normally gravitate towards that as a genre, but this was just so beautifully crafted. It was absolutely a wonderfully told story. This is the same author who wrote Demon Copperhead, which I also loved last year, so I was really happy to be able to read this one. This story follows the family of an evangelical Baptist Christian, and he brings his wife and 4 daughters to the Belgian Congo in 1959. He is single-handedly trying to bring Christianity to this village in the Belgian Congo, and as you can imagine, things do not go to plan, and you actually hear just from the 4 daughters' perspectives and also from the wife, like from the mother, and it is just so beautiful. I loved the female perspectives in this and just the strength and resilience. It's all about good and evil and kind of civilization versus nature, but it's just done in such a beautiful way, and it's themes that you've heard before, but honestly the way that Barbara Kingsolver writes is just absolutely incredible. I felt so deeply for these characters. They felt so real and like they were completely brought to life to me. And this is often described as like a great book club book, and when things are really popularly described as a book club book, I actually shy away from them usually. Do not let that dissuade you in terms of this book, because it is absolutely incredible and a must read. So those 3 are my best books of the year. But the next question is specifically, what's the best series that you've read? This will be kind of no surprise. I haven't actually finished a series this year or read much of a series. I've started a couple of series, but I would not say that they're my favorite, so I have to answer the Locked Tomb trilogy for this series. Well, currently a trilogy. This is still an ongoing series, but it starts with Gideon the Ninth as the first book, and this year I read Nona the Ninth and I absolutely loved it. And this is just like gets better almost with every single book that I read. This is a sci-fi, but it is like nothing else you will ever read. Every book is quite a self-contained story as well, but also in a different style and a different setup and following different characters, so it just feels so fresh, and they are so funny. Like the jokes in this book actually make me literally laugh out loud, and it's... Sorry about that. We had a full memory card. I mean, full memory on my phone. I just filmed these on my phone. As I was saying, this series is incredible, and it's like nothing else you'll ever read. Everyone says that they are very complicated books, and they are complicated, so if you like to know what's going on at every stage and you don't like too much of a mystery or like to be kind of led around like too many different like different twisty plot points, you won't like this. If you can kind of read and just let go and enjoy it, I think you really will. They are so funny. Like, I've never laughed so much as when I read these books, because the humour is so surprising, and like the way, I don't want to like spoil it because some of them are just, the jokes in it are just so funny, but it just makes you feel as well. Like, these characters, I care about them so much. And so this is the one that I read recently, and I absolutely adore it, and I love Nona. And I don't even really want to tell you what this plot is about. Basically, these are set on 9 different necromancy based planets, and each of the different planets has its own form of necromancy, and you're mainly following people from the 9th house, and the 9th house has kind of lost a lot of power. They have to do various things to be able to regain power and kind of save their own civilization, and tagline is lesbian necromancers in space. So I don't know what else to tell you. They're incredible. If you haven't heard about them before, please read them. They are so fun. So the next prompt is, what's a new release that you haven't read yet but that you really want to? And for me, that is Katie Robert. This is the new release that I really want to get to. Luckily, I was sent it by the publisher, so thank you so much. I've been getting into Katie Robert lately. She is a romance author. She does fantasy romance and also kind of, I think, dark romance stories, and these are some of her fantasy romance books. So this is the series. It starts with The Hunt on the Dark Waters, and this is between a witch and I think a pirate or a sailor, and basically they are having a romance on the high seas. And then this is continuing the same series, but it is a sapphic romance, so I'm very, very excited for this one. And it's between I think a vampire and a selkie, which is so much fun. But I just really like Katie Roberts' books. I think that she writes like with a lot of kind of humour, and she doesn't take it very seriously. I just find her plots really, really fun as well, and really easy reads. So when I'm in the mood for a fantasy romance, I always pick up, or like lately I've been picking up Katie Roberts. So this is the new series that I really want to get to, and I'm very, very excited. So let me know if you've read it and what you thought as well. Next question is, what's your most anticipated read for the second half of the year, or like that's coming up soon? And that has to be Sally Rooney's new book, Intermezzo, I think it's called. I think Intermezzo. I actually really like Sally Rooney. I think there's like some lovers and some haters out there. Although she's obviously very popular, most people do love her, and I really enjoy her books. I didn't like Conversations with Friends that much, but I really enjoyed her most recent book, which is Beautiful World, Where Are You? So I'm hoping that Intermezzo is going to be kind of an extension of that kind of writing style, because I really enjoyed it. So I'm very looking forward to that. I will be reading that as soon as it comes out. I actually have no idea when it's coming out. It has a cover now, so it should be kind of soon. I'll put it on the screen when it is coming out, because I can't be bothered to look it up right now. I'm too hot. And then the next prompt is, what is the book that you're most disappointed in this year? Which is very upsetting that I have two for this prompt. And the first, unfortunately, is The Atlas Complex. This is the third book in the, what is it actually called? The Alexandrian Trilogy? The Atlas Trilogy, I guess. Starting with The Atlas 6. The Atlas Complex was one of the worst books that I've read this year, easily. I hated it. I really, really did not like this book at all. I thought that so much of the charm of the first book was completely lost. I didn't really like the second book either, and then this one was even worse than the second one. I think that just so many things were just absolutely thrown out the window, and like for what reason I'm not sure. I just think she didn't really know how to end the book, and then aspects that I didn't love as much, like her writing style, just seemed even worse in this one. So I was really, really disappointed with the end of that series, which is so sad, because The Atlas 6 was a 5-star when I read that. And the second one that I'm really disappointed in is, unfortunately, Kylie Reid's new book. I really didn't like Come and Get It. I really enjoyed her other book, Such a Fun Age, and I thought it was really good. But this one, this is the ARC cover, so it actually does have a proper cover now. Maybe I'll put that on screen. But Come and Get It just felt so boring to me. It was really meandering. I wasn't sure what the point of any of it was, except for to kind of be snarky. But it didn't really land. I didn't like any of the characters, or I didn't even understand what it was trying to explore, which just to me feels like a failure of the book. So unfortunately, really didn't enjoy this one, and it's now going to make me hesitate to pick up another Kylie Reid book, which is very sad. But both of those actually I read in January. I kind of started off the year like pretty low in terms of my ratings, and we have picked up since then. I've read a few amazing books recently. The next prompt is, what was the biggest surprise of the year? And this one for me is easy, because I recently read The Diary of a Young Girl, which is Anne Frank's diary, and I was just blown away. And I don't know why I was so surprised by this, but I think it's just because I've had this on my TBR for so many years. Like since I was 12 years old, I've wanted to read this, or like been told I kind of should read it. And I put it on my 24 books for 2024 priority list, and I finally got round to it, and it was so beautiful. I cried by the end of it. It was just also surprising in the sense of how much I loved it, but also just surprising in the sense of what the actual book was about, because the title of Diary of a Young Girl is like, it's very accurate. This is all about a young girl who is growing up and struggling with her parents, with her own emotions, with what she really wants in life, and she becomes just such a beautifully articulate and intelligent, like socially aware young woman by the end of the diary. Like you can see her transform and change, her writing style develops, and just such a heartbreaking, such a touching read. And I just absolutely loved it. And it really like shocked me that I loved it as much as I did. And it also shocked me that the themes that it's exploring of like sexuality and like familial relationships and finding your place in the world and within your own family. And I absolutely loved it. It was very, very, very touching. Next question is, who's my new favourite author? And this is hard because I've read some amazing books and I haven't actually read that many books from the same author this year. So it's hard for me to pick a new favourite author, but the one that I want to pick is Claire Keegan. I read Foster recently and I absolutely loved it. And also I just have heard so many things about her other books that I'm genuinely really excited to pick them all up. I really want to read so much more of Claire Keegan. I love the way she writes in this like quietly beautiful way. I love authors that can write short books that have like a huge kind of emotional, like leave a big emotional wake and like big emotional ripples long after you've finished reading them. And that was this book for me. So I'm really excited to explore more of Claire Keegan. And I would love recommendations if you've read any of her other books, which ones and where to go and where to start. Really do want to read small things like these though as well. Next up we have new favourite character, and that is easily Nona the Ninth. I'm trying not to do repeat answers for the different questions, but Nona absolutely wins out. She has burrowed her way into my cold dead heart and I absolutely adore her. I love her, and usually I only love really grumpy, mean female main characters, but I absolutely love Nona and her bright sunshine cheerfulness. So that is my new favourite character. And the next question is, what's a book that made you cry? And lately I've been crying at everything. There's a few that I've already mentioned that I've been crying at, but another one that I also talked about recently is The Housekeeper and the Professor. This one absolutely made me bawl as well. And not because the subject matter is like really sad and devastating. It's a lovely kind of like happy and hopeful story. I got so emotionally involved and I just absolutely loved these characters. This is about a housekeeper who goes to look after a maths professor, but he has had a traumatic brain injury much earlier on in his life, and it means that he only has memory for 80 minutes. So he only remembers the last 80 minutes. So she constantly has to reintroduce herself to him and reintroduce her son as well, who comes to visit. And it's just the relationship between these three people, the way that maths is used in this as well, so surprising and really beautiful and poetic. I just absolutely love this book, and I could also have said this book for the prettiest book that I got this year because it is stunning. I didn't technically buy it this year, but absolutely love this book. I also obviously cried at Diary of a Young Girl, and I also cried at Stillborn. I've been crying for a few different books lately, but I love it. It means that I'm really emotionally invested, and that's what I want in a book. Next up, to flip that coin, is what is a book that made you happy? And for me, that is The Summer Book by Tove Jansson. I absolutely loved this book and it made me very, very happy. This is all about a grandmother and a granddaughter. They are spending a summer on this very small island, this tiny, tiny island in Finland, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it is just kind of different short stories or vignettes of their life living on this island, different conversations that they have, and it just made me really happy. I just loved it. I loved how their bond grew throughout the book and how they kind of grew to understand each other. It was just like such a sweet story, and it's really hard to describe because it's very funny and it's like full of little joyful moments, but I think it's one of those books that just makes you really appreciate the small things in life, like going for a walk or having a conversation with your grandmother. So yeah, that is one of the books this year that has made me very happy. So the next prompt is most beautiful book, and my actual answer of a book that I got this year has to be The Grace of Kings. This is a fantasy book. It's a new fantasy series, and I just love the vibes of this. I think it's really, really beautiful. It's this pale pink with this city, and also the whole stack look amazing all together. I think they're very understated and very beautiful. I think a lot of things use a lot of like gold foiling now and sprayed edges, and that's all very pretty as well, but I just really, really drawn to this, and I really, really like it. Very excited to read this one. I don't know actually much of what it's about, but I will be reading it quite soon, so I'm very excited about it. I think it's a high stakes, high fantasy kind of situation. I think it's a series of 4, and this is actually a debut, so I am very excited to get to these ones as well. And then the final prompt for this video is, what are your priority reads for the next half of the year? Books that you are desperate to get to or that you really need to get to. And I have 2. These are 2 that are also on my 24 books I want to read in 2024 list. The first is David Copperfield. I've had this on my list for a very long time. I've had pressure from all sides to read this book after I said I wouldn't read Dickens anymore because he's not my favourite author. But I've heard so much about this, and also I loved Demon Copperhead last year by Barbara Kingsolver, so I feel like I do really need to read the source material, and I've told myself that I have to read this year. But I am intimidated because it's so long, and it's also Dickens, so he is a wordy person, you know. This is not going to be plot heavy, it's going to be word heavy. So that is one, and then the second one is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. I've heard amazing things about this one. I think it's a kind of a classic of Italian literature. It's a historical fiction, but kind of also a murder mystery, I think. He is trying to figure out this murder investigation in the year 1327. I'm looking forward to it. It's another one I'm like, oh, it's a classic. I've got to like kind of give myself a big oomph to read it, which is also why I'm mentioning both of them in this video, so that I remind myself. I've told myself I need to read them this year. I'm sure I'll like them when I get to them, but you know, sometimes you need a bit of encouragement to get there. So that is all the prompts for this video that I'm going to be answering. Thank you so much for watching. If you have got all the way to the end, please answer some of the prompts in the comments below. I'd love to know your responses as well. Maybe just like your favourite book of the year, or if you want to be spicy, you can just say the one that disappointed you the most. But yeah, I will have to stop filming this video now because I need to get back to packing. So remember to like this video and subscribe and go and watch all of my other videos, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!